Welcome to the 3 Degrees of Freedom podcast, where we explore lifestyle engineering with our expert guests to bring you in alignment with your own 3 degrees of freedom, location, time, and financial independence. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the show. Today, we welcome a medical and a real estate professional to the show, Dr. Sanjay Sharma. Dr. Sharma empowers high net worth individuals and fellow doctors to achieve financial freedom through commercial real estate. He has over 90 million invested across major markets in the US, and his proven track record and multifaceted career highlight how medical professionals can leverage their unique skills to prosper even in the financial sector. Dr. Sharma aims to inspire physicians to transform healthcare by attaining financial independence. Dr. Sharma, Sanjay, how are you today?
Oh, I'm good. I'm very happy to be here. It's an honor to be your guest, Eric.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for coming on the show. This will be no surprise to you, but we usually start off with the same question with all of our guests. But can you help us determine which of the 3 degrees of freedom, location, time, financial, do you feel the strongest in right now? And which one do you want to develop a little bit further?
Got it. So I think I'm going to give you a surprising answer for most doctors, because I'm going to say it's time freedom. Because even though I'm super busy all the time, it's something that I've worked on my entire career to recognize what time, how to dedicate time for certain aspects. So time for seeing patients, time for family, time for growing my business, time for evaluating properties, time for exercising. And I feel that I've done a lot of positive work in that direction. I'm actually going to say it's time. Now, absolutely, could it improve? Yeah, for sure. There's no question it can improve, and I'm continually working on it. If I was a master and expert, then I guess I wouldn't even be here. I'd be in the mountains somewhere, like where you like to spend and hanging out there. And then you were asking in terms of what are the ones that I want to achieve? I would say it's financial. It's something that's misunderstood about physicians, and a lot of people in society and cultures see doctors as high earning potential. We do have high earning potentials in what we do, but what's not seen is kind of the changes that happen in medicines. And if you look at it in terms of inflation adjusted, we've actually digressed significantly. We talk about payments have decreased for the more hours that we put in. We're actually on a decline. So I hope that I can share with all my medical colleagues and all my life science colleagues to recognize these changes and introduce them avenues in which they can still attain financial attainment. This career and what we do has meaning, and I want it to continue to have meaning. And I want those who are involved in it to be able to really be in there and recognize the meaning and why we all became what we're doing.
This really hits pretty close to home, because even though I'm not a medical professional, and I don't even pretend to be so at any point in time or ever will, my wife is. And when you say how doctors are spending more and more time because either their patient load is increasing, or the demands are increasing, or the diseases that people are coming to you with is also getting more complicated and nuanced, and the science behind it is getting more complicated, right? I'm sure it's all 3 of those things. I can see that also impacting her as well. And her billable, for the amount of time that she's spending, cases are getting more complicated, and there's more information available to help make the right recommendation. And then it's also more litigious as well. So there's also this litigious situation where, depending on where you're practicing, you have to be careful what advice you give or what services you render. And that's why I'm right there with you. Even though I'm not a medical professional, I have direct stake in your mission of helping to improve the lives of medical professionals. So before we jump in a little bit more there, I wanted to ask you, you mentioned time freedom is something that you're the best at. I wanted to ask you, how are you able to balance your medical practice and your real estate investment work? Do you have time management tips, or what are some basic principles you employ to help with that?
So I've always been raised to be an early riser. That's like kind of the motto of that, what I'm raised to. We are taught to wake up early. My dad wakes up even earlier than I do. And my grandfather, when he was alive, he woke up crazy early. So it was just in me that that's what I got to do. What I didn't realize is you have to take advantage of that time. It's not so much you just wake up and then you putz around, you're on your phone, you do this, you watch the news. It's what do you do in those morning hours? For me, it's those morning hours that makes you productive. And that's my mojo. That's my time where I've got the clear thought process. I can meditate. I can do actionable items. I can create my call to actions. So what I get done in that morning hour is so significantly important for everything in my day. And it sets up the rest of my day. I wake up early. I wake up at 4 a.m. and I'm in the gym at 5:30 and I'm in my office or at the hospital by 6:45. So those morning hours I find critically important. And then I can shift right into patient hours. I can take care of my patients and then I can shift right out. And if it's business tasks I have to take care of, if it's that I'm going home to be with the family, those are critically important. Another thing that I've always cherished is vacation time. I am big on traveling in terms of getting out and taking advantage. And any moment I get, my family and I, we try to get away. So I find that also important in terms of time. You said that I was best at time management. I would say best, but it's something I've worked on. And you asked about skill sets that I do. There are certain things that I do. For example, I do the Eisenhower matrix where a lot of people do. So like my mornings are, okay, what am I grateful for? And then I label my thought process in terms of what's important and what's not important.
Hmm.
And then what's urgent and what's not urgent. And just by categorizing things, I can split up what could be an overwhelming day into categories that are either delegated to someone else or maybe wasteful that are not needed or things that immediately got to get done. Shoot, taxes are due. Okay, that's right up there at the top of the thing. Or it's the time to create my vision and work on my vision on what's going to happen a year from now or next quarter, et cetera, et cetera. So once I have my day organized, things seem less overwhelming. In a medical practice, by default, we are faced with numerous decisions at any moment at any given time. And that also can be overwhelming. And a lot of that just has come through practice. I've been in practice for almost 19 years now. I'm used to it. I'm used to the diseases. I'm an oncologist. I'm a cancer doctor. So I'm used to the intensities of the diseases that come to me and the needs and the interests of the family. And you learn to recognize, okay, how do you compartmentalize those into different areas? And that's how you get time done. Everyone says it. We all have the same number of hours and days. There are some who get so much accomplished. There's so many people that I look up to that they get this much done, but they get the same amount of days and the same amount of hours. How do you maximize that? And so that's my philosophy. A, starting out just with kind of the basics. I wake up early. Then B, recognizing what do I do during those hours and during those minutes to make it most effective in terms of what goals I need to make. And that's kind of how I work things out with time.
I think that something that's important is obviously it's in your, I don't want to say in your DNA, but in your makeup and in your nature and nurture to wake up early and take care of some of those things. I'm also the same way. I like to wake up early. That's when I hit my peak energy and when my
Yeah.
focus is the sharpest, right? There may be people out there, so I'm just talking to the audience right now, where maybe you think sharpest at night. That would
Mhm.
be a great time for you to do reflection, right? So I think that it's just a matter of understanding what your biorhythms are and basically sticking with that biorhythm, right? Because if your high energy comes in the middle of the day, then that's when you should be doing your one thing, right? That book from Jay Papasan, I forgot exactly who that. Oh, Gary Keller and Jay
Yeah.
Papasan. That book, the one thing reminds me a lot of what you're doing. And it seems like you're compressing all that plus doing some miracle morning stuff all
Right.
in the day
Yeah.
so that your day is a success before it even starts with your medical stuff, right? So I think that's an awesome time management tip and something that is probably one of the most cornerstone things for success. And so I can see that's just a lifestyle for you. I bet you when you're on vacation, you're still waking up early and still working on your business. Am I right about that?
I do that. I try to separate when I'm on vacation. I try to separate business
Ah,
stuff
good.
from family stuff. So yeah, I do wake up a little bit earlier. I still get stuff done.
That's good. Okay. Let's make a quick shift here. I want to
Sure.
talk a little bit about the healthcare system real quick, and then we can talk
Sure.
about investing and some of the nuts and bolts there.
Yeah.
How do you think the healthcare system itself would improve if physicians themselves were able to get closer to financial freedom?
Yeah.
I'm sure you've
Yeah.
thought about this a lot, but
Of
since you're
course.
trying to serve that segment, I want to talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah. Yeah. Uh, so doctors we're an interesting breed. So we are taught, rightfully so, that we do what's right for the patient. Okay. No matter what it may be. Now, that's the way I practice, and that's the way I've been trained, and that's how I mentor other younger physicians and what they do. But in doing so, you also have to recognize you yourself. You have to recognize what is it that you need as a person? What does it take to grow? And what does it take to sustain yourself? In marrying those two, there's inherent conflict. So if you're doing everything if you're always doing the right thing, it almost goes back to how we were trained in med school and how we were trained in residency. I trained at a period of time where you didn't have days off. Nowadays, I think residents get off after 12 hours or whatever it may be. We went 2-3 days at a time, A, to see what happens into the disease, B, to be there with the patients. And as a result, you're doing some sacrifice. The medical industry has changed. We're required to do more and more, and that's not necessarily supported. COVID changed a lot of things. In fact, there was a classmate of mine who I just learned, I didn't even realize this, that while she was an ER attendee during COVID in New York City, she actually ended up committing suicide. It was just too much of her to handle to marry those two things. All right. So what are the things that we can do to alleviate some of those pressures of a doctor outside of medicine? Within medicine, you can do it. Okay. The way you practice, but outside of medicine. And one of those key things is financial pressures. It really is expensive to do whatever, to live your lifestyle. And that's true for everyone. But what if you could take that away? And for anyone, all your listeners, what if you could take that financial pressures away? That's a huge burden. What if you're not concerned about how you're going to pay the kids' college or the mortgage or help out the family or the parents and all that kind of stuff? That takes away a burden. It brings us closer and closer to having a freedom in our thought process and our mindset to be a better doctor. Depending on a person's practice, you mentioned earlier, sometimes doctors are meant to see how many 10, 12 patients in an hour. I see over 20 patients a day, which in oncology is a significant amount. So what if you didn't have to practice that way? What if it wasn't about making the finances? Wow. Maybe then you brought yourself back to those times when you were a med student, when you were a resident, when you were just thinking in this thought process, oh, okay, what is going on with this patient? How can I help this patient? Maybe it can spawn additional research. I'm very active in research and we have tons of clinical trials, but maybe it would spawn me spending more time in clinical research. So it really is a shift in how medicine is practiced. It's really a shift in the care that patients would get in the United States. And I talk about a nation of financially free physicians. I have a group called Physician Real Estate Nations. And that's why I look at the nation and all the doctors and how we can help all the doctors attain that.
I can only imagine what some of these doctors are going through, especially I'm thinking emergency doctors, like surgeons, anesthesiologists, oncologists, folks like you that are really giving your all and the emotional energy that must be involved there. And I think it comes with experience to be able to handle some of that energy, right, over time. But then to come home and potentially face financial issues and to not have the choice to be able to decide, I need to slow down and take time for myself because you're financially constrained. I think that's a huge consideration. And being able to practice and move at the pace that you want to move to be at your peak self for your patients and for yourself is super, super important. Now, on a similar vein, I wanted to
Yeah.
ask you, how does your medical knowledge and some of your upbringing around the oncology and through your med school training and holding a practice throughout all these years, how does that give you an edge in the
Mm,
real estate investing
sure.
industry?
Sure. So it gives us an edge on several standpoints. We live by a certain ethos and a certain creed. By nature, as physicians, we're always considering our patient and other people. You definitely need that trust. If someone is investing in one of our deals in our company, they need that trust. And naturally, as a doctor, we exude that, and which is true. There has never been a moment where I have thought less of an investor or thought of how can I take advantage of an investor. That's not even a consideration in my mind. I have seen deals out there which I question. I I question that of the sponsors when I see deals which are like, maybe not so hot or maybe not the best investment vehicle for an investor. And those kind of things bother me. I truly, every time I talk to an investor, it's not so much, oh, come invest in my deal, is how can I help them in some way to further them on their financial thing. The second thing that makes doctors very good is by nature, we doubt everything.
Mm.
Every drug I treat in oncology, it's because it's gone through rigorous clinical trials. And then after that happens, it I question everything about it. Okay, does the mechanism of action make sense? Does this data make sense? We are super data driven. We're very analytical and we always doubt. The answer is not always yes. The answer is maybe, why. Let me understand this further. We sit there and we read all the time. So when it comes to real estate, which a lot of times it's spreadsheets and then it's analyzing multiple variables, whether it's the location, the class of the building, the future, what's happening in the community. For us, it's normal to have multiple variables coming at us. We're used to making critical decision, life and death situations that when we're talking about a real estate deal, yeah, that's easy for us. We can look at spreadsheets all day and all nights. And you want someone in that situation as a sponsor to question everything and make sure it's legitimate.
Yeah. Alongside of that, I'm just hearing a lot of things that are very familiar to me because I have an engineering background. So
Yeah.
both my wife and I guess you could consider engineering the sciences. There's no doubt that being in medicine is a science for sure, and there's always research and cause and effect and
Yeah.
new findings that help change the course of the way we practice. And so I think having that type of mindset of always wanting to understand how things work is very compatible with the careers that we've chosen. And real estate investing, as I've found as a natural engineer, and so has my wife as a practicing physician also, real estate investing it's formulaic, but there's
Yeah.
also things that like lead to each other, just like in science.
Yeah.
Once you understand what the formula is, now it's a matter of taking the formula and using it to diagnose a problem, which is financial independence or gaining wealth, building wealth. And then there's little corollaries that come in from time to time. And once you get that core knowledge in, you definitely want to work with someone like you that has caught up with all of that and is able to advise beyond the obvious. Because let's be
Yeah.
honest, real estate investing is relatively simple, or maybe it's easy for me to say that as fellow scientists, but some people need some extra help. But
Mhm.
as a physician, we are naturally tuned for this type of investment because that's the way our brain thinks. And it's very
Yeah.
formulaic and in that form. It's not like the stock market where you just drop your money in and hope it goes up, right? And so I think that's very interesting there too.
Yeah. Engineering, I think is built for this. My dad was an engineer. I'm around engineers. So I recognize the thought process and I recognize the spreadsheets of them. So engineering makes a lot of sense to get into real estate. And then
Yeah.
you can understand how the risks are mitigated. You mentioned the stock market. The reality of the stock market is, even though if you look at it over time, you get a steady return, the reality is you're not sitting in the boardroom. You really don't know what's going on in that business. You're not making the widgets or whatever it is that you're investing in. So you don't really get it. And there's layers. And then on top of that, and the stock market, you're a retail investor and you're relying on a mutual fund. And so I don't see control. With a real estate deal, when you're a sponsor, you really have control, and you're a good sponsor, you really have control of the real estate deal. People get nervous about the risks. And what if this happens? What if lightning hits the building? You got insurance. What if there's a significant change in society or this, that, and the other? There's always going to be black swan events. COVID was a black swan event. I shouldn't say there are always going to be, but there's always going to be those
The
things
risk.
that you absolutely can't expect, but you try to mitigate for all the risk that you can. You go in with a professional team, and now it makes sense. Now you're controlling the property. You have everything in front of you. You're looking at the data. You're not just putting your money in the stock market, like you're saying, which that'll go up. Yeah, over time it'll go up, but I find that more risky, if you will, than going into real estate.
Yeah. I think that also, and this is the basic conversations that you have with people when they're just getting started, but there's more control. There's more that you can do
For sure.
with the property, right? With the
Yeah,
stock, it's like your only choices are buy or sell, or maybe you can do options and maybe you can leverage
sure.
against the
Yeah,
stock, but
yeah,
that also can lead to issues. But With real estate, you can say, okay, are we going to replace the doors? Are we going to repaint the building? Are we going to get a different manager? Are we going to refinance here? Are we going to sell? Are we going to get a different insurance policy? You have all of these decision points where things can get adjusted and tweaked over time. And with a
Yeah.
great operational team, there's just less risk, right, than
Yeah.
working in the stock market. Add to the fact, too, Sanjay, that you have tax benefits, which is something we
Yeah.
haven't even talked about yet. And you get the fact that the demand for housing in the US is just sky high and the supply is nowhere near meeting the demand. That just sets yourself up for you're buying a business with hungry customers. Anyway,
Yeah.
we can go on about this
Yeah.
for decades, but I want to
Yeah.
get back to you specifically.
Of course.
And um, I'm interested in learning a little bit more about how you found out about real estate as a physician. We talked about all these areas around that, but for you personally, how did
Yeah.
you find real estate?
Yeah. So real estate for me was, I'll start out by saying everyone understands real estate. Everyone has had a roof over their head at one time, whether they're renting or whether they're buying. And everyone knows stories like, oh, wow, when this property was purchased way back when, it's worth so much more now. And it doesn't matter whether it's LA or New York City or Cincinnati or whatever, the Southeast, like everyone recognizes it that, okay, this property was worth something and now it's worth a little bit more. It's something tangible that you sit in and you live in. Okay. So that was recognizable. And I remember the time periods that I lived in New York City, and we'd see apartments going up and up. I got married. My wife's family, they were involved in apartment investing in LA, and they had recommended, why don't you do some real estate? And I was like, no, I'm a doctor. I need to concentrate on being a doctor. And the same things that everyone says, I don't want tenants. I don't want headaches. I didn't recognize at the time that there's multiple ways that you can invest in real estate, like numerous. And then I remember in New York City, I was like, oh, I had a couple uncles who said, oh, you're in New York City. You're here for training for fellowship. Why don't you buy the apartment? Why don't you buy the building? I was like, this is crazy. Who the heck buys something, and who could ever buy a building? I talked to my dad. He's no, that sounds risky. Don't do it. And so I passed on it. And then I got involved in some passive real estate investing. It was a medical office building. And I didn't know what I was doing, but some of my partners are investing. And I was like, I don't know. So I did it and it worked. Like I still am an investor in that building. I'm getting over 30% returns now. That's unheard of. And then I got involved in another building. This was a commercial building in LA. And I had an interest. I still didn't know what I was doing. It was at that time, it was a boatload of money that I was investing in. And then I would periodically get a call and they're like, oh, we were up on the roof and we found some problems. So we're renegotiating. I'm like, oh my God, this is awful. The roof is going to cave in. And they'll be like, we negotiated a credit. And I didn't know. I was like, what's that? Whatever. It sounds like I lost all my money. I kept on saying that, And then boom, I got a return. And it was crazy. Like I think I got a paper check at that time for a lot more than I invested. And I was thinking like, oh my God, this is crazy. And then eventually I was like, okay, we're going to do this on our own. So my wife and I started buying stuff in LA and Orange County, and and cap rates are super low out here. Things are very expensive. You mentioned that housing, if there's a big time shortage, and rents are sky high. So there is tremendous value that you can get in investing in LA. And so we bought a duplex, and then we exited that and bought a triplex and a quad. And literally we were significantly increasing our money by multiples. But what I also recognize is that how awesome that this was, it still wasn't meeting that what I really wanted. Like, how do I make everyone else around me, all my colleagues, get to that level? I was like, they can share in this. We work together. We do all this stuff. How do I increase that? And how do I actually get the type of properties that I want? I wanted to buy buildings. That's when I started syndicating. So then we started syndicating. We syndicated in LA. We've done it in Atlanta. We're now developing in Philadelphia and U City near UPenn. But the story I have was, yeah, real estate is tangible. People seem to be making money out of it. I don't know how to do it. I'm a little bit nervous. I put a little bit of money in it. a little bit more money and it worked, got active, and now it's really working. So now let me get to the level where I want to get to and share this with everyone else.
What a great story. And again, this sounds I'm hearing myself when I
Yeah.
first started because I don't understand all this stuff at all because my parents taught me and they did everything that they could to raise me and I ended up doing okay with their advice. But I found out that there's a better way than just being in W2 for 40
Yeah.
years.
Yeah.
And by trying this stuff out, like everyone was telling me that this wasn't going to work at all.
Mhm.
But it wasn't until my wife came along and we fell into it by accident that we had to do it.
Mhm.
And that's you talk if you think that you were having a really hard time to pull the trigger, like I was probably 3 or 4 times. I had that big obstacle to
Of
climb
course.
early on in
Yeah.
my career. So I
Uh-huh.
can totally relate with what you're putting out there for
Mhm.
sure. So maybe let's take that experience that's fresh in our conversation now and let's
Yep.
start talking to the audience because maybe there's some audience members who are either they're a physician or they're in
Mhm.
some sort of science and they're very risk adverse and they don't want to get into this, or maybe they were like you in the beginning. What
Yeah.
would you tell them about getting started or learning or why they should get started? If you had to speak
Yeah.
directly to them, what would you say?
Yeah. So you mentioned W-2s. I'm gonna approach this in two different ways. So I'm gonna approach this in terms of mindset, and I'm also gonna approach this kind of in a practical way. You yourself mentioned that a W-2 job means that you're working for 40 years. Your money is in your 401k or whatever, 403b, whatever it may be, your IRA, and you watch that grow with the idea of exiting 65 years old or 70 years old. First of all, let me talk about being 65 and being 70 years old, although I'm a bigger and bigger proponent of longevity medicine. I am an oncologist and I see time and time again what happens with malignancies and what happens when someone is, okay, I'm going to retire X date. And literally it could be like May or June, whatever it may be. And I've ignored this abdominal pain. And then sure enough, they find out that they have a malignancy. And now their thoughts of retirement are now filled with getting anti-cancer treatments. So you're youthful, you're young, take advantage of it,
Yeah.
truly take advantage of it. It's not, I don't think society in the world should look at things of you work until you're 65 or 70 years old. There's ways not to do it. And even for doctors, I have no intentions of ever stopping practicing medicine, but I'd like to practice it on my own terms. So real estate does allow you for that avenue on many aspects. One, that it grows in value quicker. Two, you talked about tax advantages. There are people that pay very little in taxes, even though they have W-2 jobs, because they're able to shelter their money through real estate. So purely from a financial standpoint, it makes sense. In terms of an entrepreneur in business, you're a business owner when you're doing it. So for some people, it can fill that niche. So it's almost more frightening to stay in what you're doing with the anticipation that after 40 years, you can break away from your work and discover all those freedoms. That's almost more risky because you're risking that against your own cognitive decline, your medical decline, your joints, your weight, your thought process, all medical diseases, etc. So it's almost riskier not investing in something like this in real estate. The second thing I want to talk about is mindset, because that's probably more important. So you and I mentioned it when you talked about, okay, fine, I was nervous to do this. My identity, I'm a doctor. Your identity is you're an engineer. Okay. So it's once you establish your identity, that is unequivocally who you are. When you ask me who I'm unequivocally a doctor, a business owner, a real estate professional, a father, a wife, an uncle. Okay. I did not limit myself to one. It's this and in life is not ors, it's and. So meaning you are not a doctor or a real estate professional. And no one is going to say, oh, you're a doctor or you're a good dad. And when people don't put that or in that situation, it's and. And how do you do that? Okay, yeah, of course, there's techniques. I talk about time management and all that kind of stuff, but it's really being able to convince yourself that you are unequivocally the identity that you state that you are. And that's what you work towards, correct? Like the Olympic athlete, they don't say, yeah, I'm a swimmer. Everyone who's going to be at the Olympics, They're gunning for that gold medal. None of them are saying that, yeah, maybe I'll make the team. No, they're saying I am unequivocally on the getting a gold medal winning for my country. So that identity is so important. And for doctors, we are pretty talented and accomplished people. We have done a ton of things. We all got A's. We all graduated in upper class. We all competed to get into med school, to residency, and all that stuff. We all, at one time or another, were running a code where someone is dying in front of us and making decisions on what to do to try to save that person. You know what? That's pretty darn powerful. What the heck is stopping you from doing anything else? And so that's the mindset that you need or that's a mindset you can create if you don't have it, to do things which you see that are risky. Nothing is as risky as what I do on a day-to-day basis in terms of uh, taking care of patients. So that's what I hope to share with those who I talk to and those who I mentor. So it takes mindset, and it's recognition of what is in front of you and what the reality is giving you in terms of working with W2 life and what it can take for you to break out of that to attain the freedoms you're.
Very well said. I think everything that you said, I cannot disagree with, and I had to underscore again for our audience. I did want to add one piece, and I wanted to get your
Sure.
thought on it before we head
Yeah, of
into
course.
the final segment of our show.
Yeah.
But the one piece is a lot of people think that a W 2 is not risky, or being in a business on your own is not risky. I'll tell you what is risky,
Yeah.
depending on just that W 2 for your whole financial
Yeah.
future, or depending on that one business for your whole financial future.
Right.
That's not going to work. Like,
Yeah.
I've experienced that before. I've been lucky enough to not get laid off or fired or anything, but I recognize that when you are putting your entire financial future with a company that you're working for, there's like social media posts out there right now. We're recording this in Q1 of 2024, that like Slack and Google and all these tech companies are laying off like tens of percent of their entire workforce. That's like thousands and thousands of people. And if you don't have a backup plan or something else to depend on, you're going to be in a world of pain because you haven't thought about risk properly. So it's ironic, right? That people are thinking about risk like, oh, I'm going to stay with my W 2 because it's not risky.
Yeah.
But it's extremely risky if you're not venturing out there and stepping into that and identity that you were talking about, not the or identity, it's the and. You're a husband, a father, or maybe you're a wife, or you're a mom, right? And you're a W 2 employee or a doctor or an engineer, but you're also an investor. Got to have that, right? Because we fill all those roles. And I think it's important to recognize what's really happening here. And really, the truth of the matter is that we are all out on our own,
It's
and
true.
things are expensive, going full circle
Yeah.
back to when you first started. So
Yeah.
you got to depend on yourself. So I don't know. I wanted to get your thoughts on that before we head into the last part of the show. But do you agree, disagree? What do you think?
Yeah, no, I agree. The industry has changed where you don't work for one company and retire with one company and have the pension from one company. And the company person, the company identity is gone in our modern society and modern industry. And it's also true for doctors. The traditional doctor never was threatened in terms of what happens to his or her job. But things have changed. I mean, COVID, again, a black swan event. There's doctors who lost their jobs. There's doctors who didn't have elective surgeries to go to. Things drastically changed from us in what's considered one of the safest
Mhm.
jobs ever. And then secondly, just the way that medicine is being practiced is changing for doctors. And you're right. The reality is things can change in a heartbeat. And as a doctor, I see it all the time. Someone is young and healthy and is sick, and then okay, that income is gone. Okay, it's fine. You're on disability, and that's only limits on what you can do. Yeah, they're sayings in terms of who are like the wealthiest or the highest net worth, and it's the people who have 7, 8 income streams coming in, and it can just balance out.
And weather
So I
storms.
agree with you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Be able to completely weather a lot of those storms and anything that comes up. So yeah, I'm glad that you agree with me. That's awesome. That gives me a good win going into the final segment of the show here. So,
Yes, you got all wins. Everything's going good. Yeah.
you gotta get some wins. Gotta
Good.
get them where you can find them, right? All right. So final segment of the show is called the
Yeah.
rapid round. It's five
Yeah.
questions I ask every one of my guests, and they're meant to be answered in about 30 seconds each. So
Sure.
do your best if you can, and we'll get started. Okay, you ready?
Good. Yeah.
Number one, name any resource that was or still is essential in your journey to pursuing freedom.
Yeah. I'm still going to say, this sounds so dumb, but I'm still say pencil and paper.
Oh,
As many
nice.
apps that I look at, when it comes down to it every morning, it's I have a pen and paper, whether it's a notebook, whether it's actually some sort of guided book to give me instructions. It's still, I'm writing things down. Even like here, I've got notes right next to me.
I love
So
it.
it's still pen and paper for me.
There's something about that tactile motion that like
Uh-huh.
gets more solidified in your brain when you're actually writing it out versus typing it.
I think you're
Love it.
absolutely right. I agree.
Number two, if you woke up and your business was gone and all you had was $500, a laptop, place to live, and some food, what would you do
Mm.
first to rebuild?
Oh, you know what? I would go to my family and I would go to my wife and I would look for the support and the comfort there.
Oh, wow. Great.
Because that's a reality for all of us. And it's not just everything has disappeared, but everyone has moments where they feel that way. They feel overwhelmed or something like that. And quite literally, you need comfort before you look at the scope of things in front of you and then you figure it out.
There was a doctor in Arizona that operated on my mom. She
Mm.
had a surgery recently. It was a minor thing. I think it was for her rotator cuff or something like that. And it turns out that a couple of weeks later, the guy came up and was accused of, I guess it was malpractice by operating on the wrong part or one of those horror
Long side.
stories.
Yeah.
Yeah, operate like doing some sort of administrative mistake. And what's scary about this is that this was the third time it's happened with that doctor
Mhm.
once the case opened up.
Sure.
And so you never know because it may be a decision for the malpractice insurance company to the insurance company just be like, yeah, we're not covering you. So you're on your own. And that suit could be a $10 million case,
Mhm.
depending on how things work up. And so to your point about if you had to start over, if everything was taking away from you, I love the self-awareness that you have to be able to seek comfort first in what you have, right?
Mhm.
That gratitude there, right? To try to recalibrate. So before even any action is taking place, you're trying to like reset the mindset. So I love your answer there. Just had to pass that story along to
Yeah.
underscore your point. Number three, what does your self-reflection and goal setting practices look like?
It goes back to my morning routine. You talked about gratitude. Is what am I grateful for? What are my intentions for today? How does those intentions fit into my goals for Q1, Q2, Q3, 1 year, 2 years? In my company at Titan 3 Capital, we have this saying in terms of when we start coming up with ideas, especially tangential ideas, we ask each other, okay, is that a 100x idea or is that a 1x idea? To just keep us focused on what our goal is. So I would say my morning routine does that. And within my partners at my company is reminding each other uh, and what our goal is and where we're trying to go and what our mission is.
Love that one. Excellent. All right. Number four, I think this is pretty similar to what we just talked about. If it was self reflection and goal setting, I want to talk about your core work habits that you attribute mostly to your success. I think I know what the answer is, but what are your core personality traits or work habits that you attribute to your success?
Yeah. So the core work habits, yeah. So I mentioned my morning habit is important. And also in my company that our mission values. We are creating communities worth living to create legacies worth leaving. So that always comes to mind when we're looking at a deal, and it kind of centers and it focuses where we're going on in our business and what deals we're looking for.
Awesome. Number five, and final question, what tool or process has become one of your most important time, money, or energy saving ninja magic tricks that you use every day?
I like that. The ninja magic trick.
Yeah, like a hack.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, this doesn't answer your question, but it's actually simple. And I like heaters. This sounds so dumb.
Okay.
I have a heater under my desk. I live in Southern California in Orange County, but
Yeah.
I like the warmth on my feet and I like the warmth in my car
Mm.
on my feet. So
Like,
that's my ninja hack for comfort.
hey, I'll tell you though, seriously, like if your feet are cold, like you're cold for the whole day, and then that's not
Sure.
good at all. You know what
So-
though? On a serious note, I have to mention this just to help with the earnestness of this answer. My wife and I, we have a bed jet now, which is it's basically something you put at the foot of your bed
Okay.
that pushes air onto your, and
Oh,
it's, you can get like a special. You can get a water based one to control the temperature of
oh,
your
cool.
bed
Yeah.
to help you with sleep. But
Yeah.
we got one that has a temperature variable control and a biorhythm. And
How
if you
nice. Yeah.
set the heat up right in the morning, you can wake up through heat because you get warm
Mm,
rather than just
interesting. Yeah.
using light or sound, right? To get
Mm.
yourself up. That way it eases you in so that you're waking up and not interrupting a circadian rhythm. So
I like that.
um
Huh,
pretty
I'll check that
interesting,
out.
pretty interesting stuff.
Pretty good.
So I know you
Yeah.
meant that to be pretty comical, but I want to bring it back to be
I
very
appreciate that. You gave me some credit. Oh God, wasted my time listening to the whole
no,
podcast.
no,
And this
no.
is what he's got.
No,
He's got a
you're
darn
good.
heater on his toes.
So, Dr. Sanjay, on that note, why
Yeah,
don't you tell the listeners a little bit about how they can find out more
yeah,
about you and what you have going on?
yeah, yeah. I'd love to meet everyone. I love to communicate. I'm on LinkedIn every single day. That's a great way to connect with me. I also through my company, Titan3Capital.com. That's my company. Like I said, we are bringing investors into communities that are worth living, to leave legacies worth leaving. And it's a great way. You can get my free ebook there. You can learn what we're doing in the life science communities and how we're supporting doctors and scientists and building luxury apartments for them to grow and live and celebrate their family, and how it brings our investors significant returns that likewise leaves their legacy and makes them financially independent.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sanjay. That's
My
awesome.
pleasure.
And I really appreciate you coming on the show and sharing your wisdom today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It was an honor.
Of course. Yeah. And for you listeners that have listened all the way to this end of, or to this point in the show at the end, just want to thank you as well for listening. And wherever you're listening or watching us, whether it's on YouTube or Spotify or iTunes or whatever, wherever you're watching this media, I'd encourage you to please reach out to us or interact with us any way you can, whether it's leaving a comment or thumbs up or subscribing or whatever, because we want to appease those algorithm gods so that we can get more exposure to great guests like Dr. Sanjay, or get more incredible listeners like yourselves into the show. So once again, Dr. Sanjay, thank you so much for coming on. It was a pleasure.
My pleasure. Take care, dear.
Thank you guys. We will see you guys in a few days. Talk soon.